friends before at parties and stuff.
Right. Yeah, they're like, this just sums up the organization. I guarantee you every single team has guys throwing punches in the locker room. They're just not on camera.
No, it is a terrible organization, but that's not the reason why.
Yeah, but it doesn't, yeah. It wasn't the organization's culture why these guys are fighting on the sideline.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Monday, December 27th. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher, and we are brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. We're back to just a normal week. Christmas is over. Goodbye, Christmas. We're slowly but surely working our way into the new year, but we've got a really nice week of games. There's not any really ridiculous slates. I think it's 10 games on Friday, but that's the least of my worries. So we're going to have a lot of fun talking NBA, or at least we're going to try our best given COVID's still running rampant. Before we do anything, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how are you? How was your weekend?
I'm good. A little slow. I took Benadryl last night, so kind of dragging it a little bit, but I woke up, so that's good. But no, weekend was good.
Is it?
Not DFS wise. But holidays were nice. Weekend was fun. A lot of sports. Washington got absolutely annihilated. So like they got beat so bad it was almost to the point that it was entertaining to watch. So that was whatever. But hopefully start winning some money this weekend.
Should sports have forfeits?
No, I think that anybody that still believes people that thought Washington was decent going into last night should have to just watch them get beat down so that they understand that they were wrong.
That feels like a game where everybody should just be in agreement, and it's just we're going to stop at halftime.
Meanwhile, the Cowboys are going for it on fourth down and still throwing going into the half.
Yeah, that was brutal. We were playing a board game, and all of a sudden it was just 28-7 or something before we even looked. And then I went to the bathroom and came back, and it was 35. And I think that was the tackle eligible score. And I was like, okay, they're just doing it however they want to do it today.
Yeah, I mean, the very, very first pass of the game for Heineke, McLaurin beats Diggs and has the entire outside open and deep open, and Heineke just underthrows him by 10 yards to the middle of the field, and you kind of knew how that game was going to go.
Yeah. Turns out having a really good quarterback helps.
Yeah. That the only thing that actually annoyed me from that game were two things. It had nothing to do with the game. One, everyone going nuts about how good Diggs is, which fine, but that was a horrible throw. That had nothing to do with Diggs. He was beat. And then two, everybody commenting on Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne fighting it's a referendum on the organization when it's just two dudes that got in a fight on the sideline.
Yeah, you can pick 10 worse things that are going on for that organization and pretty easily before you get to something like that, which is basically a non-issue. The day,
losing
the
by
morning
50
you wake
points
up
to the Cowboys on Sunday night, referendum on the organization. Two dudes being pissed off about it and fighting on the sidelines, not a problem.
No, not at all. All righty, we got 7 games to go here. We've got just a basically infinite amount of COVID news to work our way through. I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Yeah, let's go.
We are starting it off with the Houston Rockets, 6-point dogs in Charlotte, 233 total. On the Houston side, this one's kind of easy. Garrison Matthews out with COVID. DJ Augustine out with COVID. Q tag on Kevin Porter and Jalen Green. So if Porter and Green happen to be in, and I know Green sort of got dinged up again. I don't really know what to make of him right now. Porter, we haven't seen in ages. Are you trying to get it's a great spot, but are you trying to get to anything for Houston if everybody's in?
Christian Wood is finally reasonably priced on DraftKings at 8,200. He's only center eligible, so still difficult compared to FanDuel, but he had been 9,300 last week. So he does start to become interesting at that price. But other than that, I don't see a lot. I mean, if you want to throw some shots at Jalen Green at 5K and hope that, the talent wins out in a good matchup against Charlotte, that's certainly fine. Eric Gordon, 5,300. He obviously has a ceiling, but with the current status of the NBA, I'm pretty sure that we're going to get, better plays in this range than sort of just hoping guys play well. So, Christian Wood, Jalen Green, Eric Gordon, I think they can all be the lower owned, high upside piece that rounds out your lineup. I don't think any of them are guys that I anticipate really building around.
And on the off chance that Porter and Green are out, we're going to be looking pretty heavily at Armani Brooks and Josh Christopher, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would think so. My assumption is that Brooks would go back into the starting lineup. He'd look good at 4,400. He sucks, but the matchup's good. He's cheap. He'd probably play a lot of minutes. So he would look like a pretty good value. And Eric Gordon would look better as well.
Do you think could we be getting Christopher and Brooks in that starting lineup?
If Porter and Green are both out?
Yeah. It'd be then Gordon, Tate, and Wood.
Who's the fourth that they normally
No Garrison.
Oh,
Matthews. Now.
Yeah. So yeah, probably. I think probably.
Obviously, one of them are starting.
Yeah. Probably both of them.
Yeah. 3,700 for Josh Christopher right now. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. Like that's going to look good if we lose at least one of Porter Green.
Yeah, I'm looking now to see how much they've played alongside each other this year because I know, like recently, you were kind of getting one of them on and one of them off, but I don't think there's any real reason they can't both play.
Okay. So something that we got to keep an eye on. Look, it's the first game. We're going to know a lot more for this one. This isn't the one that we really need to dig into. The side of the game that we really need to dig into
136 minutes.
Okay. That's not bad.
No.
Given this team, at least.
Yeah.
The Charlotte side is a little bit wild. So Miles Bridges out for COVID. Cody Martin out for COVID. PJ Washington out for COVID. Here's the ownership now on everybody for Charlotte. 15-ish% for Rozier across both sites. 20 for Oubre. Call it 20 for LaMelo. Gordon Hayward significantly higher owned on DraftKings where he's $900 cheaper. 20 to 25% on Jalen McDaniels. And then only 10% for Mason Plumlee. Let's have a conversation about that. But we're going to have to see some minutes going up around here for Charlotte. I want to start with Plumlee because I'm surprised the ownership's not a little bit higher. Clearly, we have a never-ending supply of centers on a day-to-day basis. But 4,600 for Mason Plumlee on FanDuel, 4K on DraftKings. How are you feeling here?
Yeah, pretty surprising to me that he's not getting more ownership. I mean, I get that the opportunity cost is high, but it's a great matchup against Houston. This game in general, two really, really fast-paced teams. Plumlee for the season is at 0.89 DraftKings points per minute. The playing time has really been the issue, but when you take out Bridges, when you take out Washington, I don't think there's any reason to think Plumlee isn't playing quite a few more minutes here. So I think he looks like a very, very good value.
Yeah, I gave him 28 minutes. I think that's probably like the low end of an expectation for someone that's going to start and you would expect to close. I think 32 to 34 is not outside the realm of possibility. They don't seem like they want to give Nick Richards a ton of time at center, no matter what the scenario is, whether he starts or comes off the bench. So I went with like a Mason Plumlee gets the most of it, Nick Richards, and maybe they go small with like Jalen McDaniels as well, splitting the rest of that time. But I'd have barring foul trouble or injury, I have a hard time seeing Mason Plumlee playing less than 28 minutes.
Yeah, and it's another spot where, normally you don't really care about standings this time of the year, but it does make me feel a little bit more confident in Plumlee that the Hornets are the 8th seed in the East right now. They're 17-17. It's not like you're talking about the Pistons or some team that is actively looking to lose games, or at the very least, doesn't care about winning them and could just use this time to run JT Thor and Nick Richards and whoever the hell else out there. They would still like to win these games. So I don't think they're going to just, punt a very winnable game against Houston.
Yeah. All right. We're on the same page there. Who else stands out to you? Or is it just sort of like, I want to get all of Rozier, Oubre, Ball, Hayward, McDaniels?
Yeah. I mean, I want to get to all of them. I think as far as value goes, McDaniels looks fantastic. He's at 0.85 DraftKings points per minute this year. Likely to play a ton of minutes with Bridges out, can play multiple positions, which is nice. But those guys being out also opens up more run for Oubre, Hayward, Rozier, Ball. Like Ball, Rozier, Hayward, Oubre, I think all look good and will certainly be guys that I'm rotating through. Plumlee and McDaniels, I think, are like value pieces you can build around.
Yeah, McDaniels 3,700 price tag on DraftKings is just so easy to grab. I just want to get a lot of it. Honestly, you're not going to find many better spots than the game with the 233 total. 6 points higher than the second highest game and 14 higher than the third highest game. So this is just the biggest offensive environment we're going to find. And I mean, it's the Hornets. It wouldn't even shock me if they played like an 8-man rotation today. They have no problem running these guys out here for big time minutes. If you told me that we saw Rozier, Oubre, Ball, like all these guys play 34, 36 minutes, I would totally believe that. They cut this rotation pretty short. So load up on Charlotte as far as I'm concerned, but just no one in particular. I don't have anything else here. It just looks really good.
Yeah, it looks like a game where I'm probably going to have a lot of exposure and then crazy stuff's going to happen at 7:45 and I'm going to have no roster spots left.
Sounds about right to me. Anything else here?
Nope.
All right, schedule for the rest of the day. Adam will be back at 11 for the NFL strategy show. recap edition. We've got the Awesemo betting show coming up at noon. We have the Yahoo NFL show at 3 p.m. I have made, let me check and see if this has gotten updated yet. It hasn't. I've made the executive decision that I think this is the case. We're going to have the NBA pre-show at 4:30, leading into the NBA deeper dive from 5 to 6, and then NBA live before lock from 6 to 7. And then we've got NFL live before lock. Do you know who the Monday night game is tonight? I don't.
Saints and Dolphins.
Oh, I did know it was the Saints based on my kicker discussion from last night. 7:15 NFL live before lock. We also have NBA. Thank you, Jordan.
I just said that.
Yeah. NBA ownership rankings are free. NFL single game projections are free as well. Now we're moving it on. Chicago and Atlanta, because we needed more games that just have a ridiculous amount of people out. Atlanta really takes the cake on this one, but we're going to start on the Chicago side. Lonzo Ball out for COVID. Alfonso McKinney out for COVID. Tony Bradley out for COVID. Caruso is just still hurt. And then Derek Jones Jr. still working his way back. He is questionable. This one sort of surprised me a little bit. We don't have anyone in double digits in ownership from Chicago on the DraftKings side. There's one piece that I think is very clearly weird in that regard, and that would be Kobe White, who's just 4,100. On the Chicago side, these guys have significantly better prices than they do on DraftKings. DeRozan, $300 cheaper. Vooch is $700 cheaper. Levine is $1,000 cheaper. But these guys are all still pulling about 10% ownership. So I'm more interested in that big three of DeRozan, Vooch, and Levine on FanDuel. And I'm very surprised to see Kobe White only getting 9.9% ownership on DK. What stands out most to you?
The Kobe White piece. 4,100 is just a really cheap salary. Now, White hasn't been great this season. I mean, he's still playing alongside very high usage guys in DeRozan, Levine, Vooch. He has a 20% usage rate this year, 0.67 DraftKings points per minute. But the one thing to keep in mind with the per minute production is he has a 45% true shooting percentage. You can think whatever you want about Kobe White's efficiency, but that is likely to come up as the sample gets larger. So the playing time combined with the salary is enough for me to be interested in White, even if I do accept that he's obviously not gonna. It's not as likely he's gonna be out there just gunning like he did for large stretches last season.
And I think he has to play a ton. Like I gave him 34 minutes. I don't really see a way around it, given the fact that we've got no primary point guard and he's the other point guard. So
yeah, he played 33 minutes last night.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on DeRozan, Vooch, and Levine now? Given the fact that this is just going to be a very different looking team with no Lonzo.
I think they all just kind of look decent to me. Like Lonzo being out doesn't move the needle on these guys quite like it does, like Levine being out does, because Lonzo's only a 17 to 18% usage guy. If anything, Kobe White is a higher usage guy than Lonzo, but I still think that you have a ceiling on Levine, Vooch, DeRozan. It's just that they're also priced about where they should be. So I think any of those guys are fine, but I don't think it's a situation where there's a ton of production that is being vacated by Lonzo that's going to any of these guys in particular.
I think I'm more interested in these guys, and I don't really know which one it's going to be. The 5% ownership looks really appealing to me across the board for them in GPPs, because they should, like, this is a great spot against Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's missing basically like 200 minutes of what their normal starting lineup is. They're playing so many guys that aren't real NBA players. I think Chicago is just going to have a lot of success offensively. I think Atlanta struggles defensively here. And I find those Chicago prices even more intriguing on FanDuel. So I think I end up getting to a little bit more Chicago than the field. Maybe the 9K price tags on DraftKings slow me down, but I like these four guys for Chicago. Do you see any other value for the Bulls?
Not really. I mean, Javonte Green's 3,700. He could certainly give you 30 plus minutes, but he's also not a good fantasy producer, and we're not starving for value at all on this particular slate or any slate in the last month. So I don't really see a whole lot there.
All righty. Well, you ready for this one?
Probably not.
Because this is the most ridiculous one on the slate for sure. All right. For Atlanta, I'd be better off telling you who is available, but here's who's not available.
Love the injury report.
We've got no Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, Kevin Huerter, Gallinari, Okongwu, Lou Will, TLC, Jalen Johnson, Wes Iwundu, Sharif Cooper. Shondi Brown has been signed. So the actives are Bogdanovich, Capella, Reddish, Wright, Jeng, Mays, Lance Stevenson, And then Malcolm Hill, Cat Barber, and Malik Ellison, who I called, I think, Mark Ellison for the first 15 minutes of the process show this morning. Three of these pieces for Atlanta are very easy. We're going right back to Cam Reddish in a relatively aggressive manner. 5,300 on FanDuel, 5,800 on DraftKings, highly owned, and he should be. We're going right back to DeLon Wright, 5,700 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DraftKings, 15 to 25% owned, depending on where you're at. And then Bogdan Bogdanovic, who I think you and I played quite a bit of on Christmas Day, much to no avail. 28% owned on FanDuel, 30% owned on DraftKings. Those three guys, I don't really have much to say. To me, they're unassailable and just simply really good plays.
Yeah, agreed completely. Bogdanovic played 36 minutes on Christmas. For a forward-looking discussion, that's really all that I care about. He shot horribly, he sucked, whatever. He played 36 minutes. He's played 469 minutes since the start of last season without Young or Collins on the floor. He's averaged 1.03 DraftKings points per minute. There's no reason to just decide that Christmas Day is indicative of what is going to happen going forward. You're much better off looking at what he has done over this entire period of time. So he looks great. You said who are the other two? Wright and Reddish?
Reddish, Wright, Bogdanovic.
Yeah, they both look great as well. DeLon Wright, 248 minutes without those guys on the floor, 0.77 DraftKings points per minute. Kind of the opposite of Bogdanovic. Don't look at Christmas Day and think that you're just automatically getting 40 points from DeLon Wright. But he's also playing very big minutes. He played 34 on Christmas Day. He had played 36 to 38 in the previous games without Young. So he's still going to be out there a ton. Cam Reddish, 373 minutes, 26.6% usage rate, 0.95 DraftKings points per minute. You should get a ton of playing time from him. So he looks excellent as well.
All right. Those three guys are very easy to talk about. Clint Capella, his role is set in this team. He's 8K on FanDuel, 8,300 on DraftKings. I think he looks fine. I'm not mad at all that I get to Clint Capella. I think there's just going to be a lot of centers that you're able to get to. And he's, to me, basically priced appropriately.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like he's averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute in 547 minutes without those guys since last year. 17.5% usage rate, 24.7% rebounding percentage is the big number for him. And you could get, 32 to 33 minutes. He played around 28 on Christmas in his first game back, but he's also appropriately priced. If we were talking about, like the 7K Capella that we've had at times this year, I would absolutely love him, but at 8,300, more of a tournament option. If he's relatively low owned, and right now he's only 7% on DraftKings, then I'm certainly interested, but he's basically in that Christian Wood category for me, where I still think he's going to be a little difficult to build around, but if I get to him in tournament lineups as a lower owned piece, that makes a lot of sense.
What else stands out here? Is it Skylar Mays at 3,800? Is it Lance Stevenson? We've got Gorgie Jang likely playing whatever minutes Clint Capella doesn't play at center, coming in with a little bit of value. It's interesting to see like Gorgie Jang at 3,900 projected for 10% ownership and Mason Plumlee at 4K projected for the same. Those are not the same plays today, and I don't even think it's really all that close. What are we doing with the rest of Atlanta? Because there's clearly a shit ton of playing time to go around.
Yeah, so Jang should play whatever minutes, like basically 48 minus Capella's playing time. Makes him a reasonable value option to take a shot at 3,900. Yeah. I don't anticipate them playing him alongside Capella, so I'm not, super confident in him. If they do, then that's one thing. Like, we were to somehow get a starting lineup with Jang and Capella, then absolutely be very interested in Jang because it means he's playing a lot of minutes. But assuming that they are not going to do that, and they really could. Like, they're missing all of their bigs essentially. But yeah, assuming that they aren't going to do that, especially when you consider who Chicago plays, like how's that going to work? Assuming they're not going to do that, then it makes him really risky. I think Skylar Mays looks very good. He's 3,800. He is the issue for Mays is that he's behind Wright, Reddish, and Bogdanovic. But I think there's a good chance that Mays is the one that joins the starting lineup, especially when you consider the Bulls. Like, you can very easily slide Cam Reddish to the 4. You put Skylar Mays into the starting lineup. Mays has played 268 minutes without Young or Collins since last year. He's at 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. Even if that production comes down a little bit, he is going to look like a really good value at 3,800, assuming he starts. If he comes off the bench, he's riskier. Lance Stevenson at 3,100 is still really risky. They've pretty clearly not wanted to play him a lot. He's kind of just, been soaking up whatever minutes he has to. But you're at a point now where I assume he's ahead of everyone other than Capella, Wright, Reddish, Bogdanovich, Jang, and Mays in the rotation at this point. So you could still potentially get, low to mid 20s from Stevenson. Not that that's, necessarily the most likely case. So more of a dart throw at 3,100. But assuming Mays starts, I really like him. If Gorgie Jang starts, he would look a lot better. But I'm assuming we get a starting lineup of Wright, Bogdanovich, Mays, Reddish, and Capella.
All right, we're on the same page there. And yeah, I think Mays for 3,800 at that point in time is going to look pretty good. Keep your eyes peeled, guys. It wouldn't shock me if we add 2 more people to their COVID list and get 3 back from the people that are already out. So just take your time on that one.
Yeah. Trae Young's been tweeting that he's completely fine and that he's just waiting for a negative test. So
we'll find out. Anything else there for Atlanta?
No.
400 viewers, 65 likes. Guys, it's the holiday season. That's embarrassing. Hit that thumbs up and get that over 100. Boston, 8.5-point favorites in Minnesota. Oh, by the way, just in case we thought Atlanta was ridiculous, don't worry. We're going to get to Minnesota, who's potentially missing their entire starting 5. For the Celtics, like I said, 8.5-point favorites. All of their normal starters appear to be in. Smart, Brown, Tatum, Horford, Robert Williams. Dennis Schroeder out, COVID. Josh Richardson out. Neesmith out. Freedom out. Fernando out. CJ Miles out. I don't even know if he was ever in. Justin Jackson out. We've got Sam Hauser available and Grant Williams is questionable. So for Boston, Jason Tatum's the only guy in double digits of ownership on both sites. I like Tatum quite a bit here, 9,900 on FanDuel, 10-4 on DraftKings, mostly because money isn't really a problem around that high 9s, low 10 range. Like you just don't have much issue fitting those guys in. Jaylen Brown is still criminally underpriced sort of on FanDuel at 8K in comparison to the 9,300 he's pulling on DK. I've got a bit of interest. I don't know. We need to have the conversation. I can't stop getting Robert Williams on FanDuel with his stupid power forward eligibility, and it's really making things really difficult for me.
Use the numbers with Al Horford active.
I do. It's still a problem. I project him for 71% true shooting because the dude doesn't miss.
Right.
He only dunks. So it's tricky. Anyway, it's tricky. How do you feel about Tatum and Brown? Let's start there.
I think if you can get to them, they both look good. I doubt that I really end up prioritizing them on this slate. But like you said, money's not going to be an issue. Just getting raw points from Tatum at 10-4 or Jaylen Brown at 9,300 is going to be at least, somewhat appealing. Brown also shooting guard, small forward eligible on DraftKings. No reason to be concerned about his playing time anymore. He played 37 minutes last game, so that looks pretty nice. So, kind of, I guess, more luxuries than necessities, but there's just going to be spots where you need raw points in your lineup.
Yeah. There's not really much on the DraftKings side for Boston. I don't really have anybody that I think that we should be adding here. Are you seeing anything else? To me, it's just like a bunch of not interesting stuff.
Yeah, assuming Horford plays, I don't really see much. Williams is at 0.88 DraftKings points per minute in the games that Horford's played this year. He's likely to play 28 to 30 minutes. He's 6,400, only center eligible, so doesn't really stand out. Peyton Pritchard at 4,300, you could certainly take some shots at if you wanted to, but there's just going to be better value elsewhere on the slate because of, all of the injuries. So I don't really see much on DraftKings from Boston.
All right. Well, we're on the same page there then. That's for sure. All righty. I guess we're about to do this. The old Minnesota Timberwolves with just true garbage from top to bottom. If you thought it was bad for Atlanta, it might actually be worse for Minnesota. Here we go. Q tag on Patrick Beverley. That's the good news. Q tag on Josh Okogie, who can play anywhere from 0 to 36 minutes today, and it would be a believable outcome. No D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, Jared Vanderbilt, Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, or Taurean Prince. I think that's like the 5 highest usage guys on Minnesota today. We've got Malik Beasley in the 20s in ownership across FanDuel and DraftKings. I think that makes a ton of sense. The guy that I think we need to talk about most, though, power forward eligible on FanDuel, 3,800. Center eligible on DraftKings, 3,300. How good of a play today is Nathan Knight? And for those of you that need, we'll take 30 seconds for you guys to Google Nathan Knight to figure out who he is.
Yeah, former Atlanta Hawk.
Yes.
Yeah, he looks good.
Yeah.
The issue is that, you're taking up a center spot, but he produces. He's played 47 games in the NBA. He's produced 0.96 DraftKings points per minute. He doesn't really have anybody in front of him, so just looks like a really good value at 3,300.
Well, he does have somebody in front of you. Newly signed Minnesota Timberwolves Greg Monroe will be available here. Do with that what you will. He is not in the FanDuel and wasn't in the FanDuel and DraftKings player pool when I downloaded the salary files at 5:00. So keep your eyes peeled. Don't get the sense that he's going to be anything more than the flat minimum. But they do have Greg Monroe now. That's a thing that exists in the NBA thanks to COVID. What do we do with the rest of this team? Jaden McDaniels should be likely to play as many minutes as he can basically handle, but he's in the fives, not the best per minute guy in the world. Honestly, if Pat Beverly doesn't play, we're going to be throwing a lot of minutes at some sort of group of Jalen Noel, Jordan McLaughlin, and Balmaro. Chris Silva is also another potential big man that's here. How do we break down this Minnesota team? Is it Jake Layman season?
The Beverly news is big because if he plays, he's going to look good at 5,300. He would look good at 5,300 even if the team were healthy. You take out some of those guys and Beverly starts to look even better. But Malik Beasley certainly has a high ceiling here. He's also relatively expensive, but he's played 241 minutes since last year without any of Edwards, Towns, Russell on the floor. 25.8% usage rate, 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. Jalen Noel's played 327 minutes without those guys. 1.01 DraftKings points per minute with a 27.2% usage rate. He's only 3,900. So he looks reasonable, even if Beverly is in. If Beverly is out, he looks fantastic. Jaden McDaniels, like you said, not as good a per minute producer as Jalen McDaniels, also more expensive. So makes him more of a secondary option, but he should play a ton of minutes here. Jake Layman at 3,800 looks fine. Okogie, if he plays at 3K, like you said, anywhere from 0 to 36 minutes probably. But I think that, 3,200 Jordan McLaughlin, he could be fine as well. He's at 0.91 DraftKings points per minute. So a lot of this is going to depend on Beverly and then, sort of seeing what the starting lineup looks like. Cause honestly, I have no idea, but
I know two pieces of it for sure. Beasley and McDaniels are starting.
Right. Agreed. Outside of that, really have no idea.
If Beverly doesn't play, Noel would be my first guess for a third starter. I think Layman feels pretty safe as a fourth starter. And then I don't have a clue.
My guess is Noel. If Beverly's out, my guess is Noel, Beasley, McDaniels, Layman, Knight. But it wouldn't be surprising if they went McLaughlin over Noel. They've wanted him off the bench recently, but again, how much of that is because you had D'Angelo Russell and you didn't need Noel in the starting lineup? There's a lot of different ways this can go still.
It's pretty incredible to me that Boston's only an 8.5 point favorite. I get that it's in Minnesota and, they're a little dinged up too, but there is not a lot of NBA talent on this Minnesota Timberwolves team today, considering I think Greg Monroe might have to play legitimately 2 rotations in an NBA game. And I didn't think that he would ever play in the NBA again. I'm sure he didn't either.
Most likely not.
Yeah.
So somebody mentioned blowout risk in this game. It's there, but like you said, it's only an 8-point spread. If you're going to start worrying about blowouts in games with 8-point spreads, you're going to lose half the games on most slates. But also the thing here, on the Boston side, they have enough bodies where, they could potentially, if the game really blows out, you're going to lose playing time for those guys. But also if the game really blows out, you probably just got really efficient production from several of their guys. On the Minnesota guys or the Minnesota side, what are they going to do? If the game blows out, they're just going to probably give Jalen Noel minutes anyway. They're going to give, whoever, they're down to their third string guys. I don't think they're really going to care about resting their third string guys to get their fourth string guys in.
Anything else for Minnesota right now?
Nope.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. All righty. If you're looking to sign up at our sponsor, Yahoo Fantasy Sports, you are in luck. We got a deal for you. You can get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum by clicking the link in the description of this video or potentially in chat. Shout out to Nightbot. If you need immediate access, you can send an email to support@awesemo.com. We can help get you set up. You also have the ability to get a $100 first match deposit bonus with Yahoo when you use the promo code XMIS100. Yahoo has their 100K Monday Night Football baller, 20K to first. So be sure to enter that one if you sign up. We have Yahoo DFS tools and projections at awesemo.com that will help you win big. Go check it out. You want to be there, guys, because you don't have too many more opportunities to get into the best NFL contests in the industry. what do we got? One more week left, two more weeks left of the NFL season, plus some playoff stuff. They've got some really great forced overlay. You don't want to miss it. So thank you to Yahoo for being the presenting sponsor here. Utah, San Antonio. This is like the best game in the world that you're ever going to get out of Utah and San Antonio because they're not inundated with COVID issues, but they both have like their best players out for today. And that is, it creates mild interest. So on the Utah side, we've got no Donovan Mitchell, and that is just massive for this team. You know, we get to redistribute usage across the board. We get 34 free minutes. Malik Fitz and Udoka Azubuike also out. I don't think anybody cares there.
I didn't know if you were about to say, if you were naming somebody in YouTube chat or somebody on the Jazz.
I don't know who Malik Fitz is either. Unfortunately, I don't think that anybody just immediately aggressively stands out. We do see Rudy Gobert getting a little bit more usage with no Donovan Mitchell off the floor. That's always interesting for me to see on a guy that doesn't create his own shots at all. But I think Gobert looks perfectly acceptable at 9,100 on both sites, pulling a little bit of ownership too. Jordan Clarkson is the sort of natural guy to get the biggest bump, certainly from a usage perspective. 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,300 on DraftKings. I think Joe Ingles is probably the second guy that gets that huge natural bump. His is more of a minutes situation than anything else. 4,200 on FanDuel, 6% owned. 3,700 on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward, 12% owned. Where, if you're picking one guy from Utah, who is it?
I don't know. They all kind of look the same to me.
I know. I agree. I felt like Joe Ingles was going to pop a bit more than that at 3,700.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ingles looks good. It's tough to pick one because they kind of serve different purposes. Like Ingles is a very good value option, I think. Shooting guard, small forward, 3,700. But I obviously would rather have Rudy Gobert if I can, or Mike Conley if I can. Sure. Since last year, without Mitchell on the floor, Ingles is at 0.9 DraftKings points per minute. Clarkson's at 1.14. Gobert's at 1.27. Conley's at 1.12. Bogdanovich is at 1.03. I mean, these guys all just get a bump, whether it's in playing time or production or both. You're likely to get, 28 to 30 minutes probably from Ingles. You're likely to get 26 to 28 from Clarkson. They both look really good. Bogdanovich looks fine. Conley looks better than normal. Gobert still looks good as always. So there's just a million. It's almost like it's the same thing with Utah as always, except it's just different names.
They're all slightly better.
Right. They're all slightly better, but like in the context of the entire slate, they're still probably not like the number one play. Yeah. They're all good plays. They're normally all good plays. It's just like they're slightly better plays than they normally are, but also like the average play on this slate is higher than normal because there's so much value. So it kind of comes out in the wash. And then it's just like, yeah, I like 8 different guys on Utah.
We're expecting Ingles to get the start, or at least I am. Are you?
Yeah,
okay.
That's my assumption.
Okay. Same page here. Yeah. Do you set rules here for Utah?
So, I mean, obviously Gobert, Whiteside, O'Neal, Gay, max one of those guys.
2 Conley, Clarkson, Ingles?
That's normally what I do, yeah. Or you can do, I mean, you could do 2 Clarkson, Ingles, Bogdanovich also.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the key part of that is you're trying to set some rules thinking about a closing lineup because all 6 of those guys can't close.
Right.
And Gobert's definitely closing. And so
you could get an Ingles, you could get a Clarkson, Ingles, Bogdanovich closing lineup. You could also get a Conley, Clarkson, Ingles closing lineup potentially. So I think probably just doing that. And also just sort of thinking who the players are. Like, do I really need... I think I can probably find better combinations on this slate than trying to get a ceiling game from all 3 of like Bogdanovich, Clarkson, and Ingles at the same time.
All right. King Rock Kid says if Ingles could stop bricking his shots, he'd be a fun pick. He's a 60% true shooting this year, 39% from 3. That is down for Joe Ingles and also still, I don't know, what do we want to call that? Very good.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of the one thing he does.
Yeah. If Joe Ingles was not shooting 60%, he wouldn't play for the Jazz any longer. Like, he's having a down year and he's still exceptional at shooting. On to San Antonio. No DeJounte Murray opens up a ton of interesting stuff here, or at least a little bit of interesting stuff. Maybe not a ton. The only other guy that's out is Zach Collins, who I guess is slowly working his way back in. Derek White, 70. Yes, they signed him before the season started.
Huh.
7,700 for Derek White on FanDuel. He is 17% owned. 6,500 with point guard, shooting guard eligibility on DraftKings. Derek White is very clearly, to me, the best option you're going to get from San Antonio. Although I'm happily going to get to some Keldon Johnson. I don't mind getting to some Jakob Poeltl at 6,400. What else do you want to do with San Antonio? First, let's start it off with, how much do you like Derek White?
I like Derek White a lot here. We know that, he's good. He just loses production to DeJounte Murray typically. For the season, he's played 293 minutes without Murray. He's at 1.02 DraftKings points per minute. And then in general, he's played a bit better lately as well. Could also see people sort of scared off of him after yesterday. He was like 45% owned on last night's slate, only played 16 minutes in an absolute massacre of the Detroit Pistons. So, I don't think that there's a whole lot to take away from that game. I think that you should just expect normal, 33, 34 minutes from White and him to produce on average about a fantasy point per minute, but certainly with the upside for more.
All right. Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl, any priorities there?
No, I mean, I think they all look good. Poeltl 6,400 should play 32 minutes or so, assuming the game's competitive. The issue you're going to run into is, there are so many options at the center position, but 1.09 DraftKings points per minute in 138 minutes without Murray this year for Poeltl. Keldon Johnson's at a fantasy point per minute, so he looks reasonably good as well.
I thought more would pop for San Antonio, just given how much more DeJounte Murray has been involved, but it didn't really seem to bump up a ton of rates. And that kind of surprised me.
One spot to pay attention to is what they do with the starting lineup. They started Keita Bates-Diop yesterday. You very easily could see that turn into one of Devin Vassell or Lonnie Walker. Yeah. If that happens, that would be a good sign for either of their minutes. And at 3,700 for Vassell or 4,200 for Walker, if they happen to slide into the starting lineup, they start to look like pretty good values.
All right. Anything else here for San Antonio?
No, I mean, it's a spot where there's a little bit more playing time, a little bit more production available, but it's also a tough Utah defense. And it's also just, there's other teams on the slate that are missing basically three DeJounte Murrays instead of one. And
really?
Health and safety protocols.
That's not good. Yeah, I hope that's not a positive test for him.
Oh yeah, I forgot he had a bad time last time.
It did not go well for him. So I hope this is just some sort of other issue for Tatum. Not that I want to see anybody getting COVID, but he very publicly did not have a good case of COVID and was using an inhaler for most of the season because of it.
Yeah, he's probably like second on the list of, oh shit, that's not good, behind Towns.
Yeah, who also is out for COVID.
Yeah. We had like the same reaction when that one came.
Yeah. We can't even get through a show anymore. All right. Memphis. Obviously, Jaylen Brown looks a lot better now, just in case you weren't aware. So this one's also surprising to me. No Dylan Brooks, COVID. No Melton, COVID. Q tag on Williams, Aldama, Merrill. Culver and Eve Pons is out too, I guess. Highest owned guys in this game. Morant at 11% on FanDuel at 8,700. John Conchar at 11% on DraftKings at 3,100. Shooting guard, small forward eligible. I thought that people would take a bigger jump. I've got a little bit more interest in $5,800 Desmond Bane, given how big of a usage bump he has seen with no Dylan Brooks out on the floor. But are there priorities here for Memphis? Or is it just sort of like circle through all of the 26 to 32 minute guys?
I think it's kind of just circle through. Moran at 8,800 is really interesting to me. He played 30 minutes yesterday, lost about 3 minutes to garbage time against the Kings. But at the beginning of the year, I mean, we saw just absolutely phenomenal numbers from John Morant. Then Dylan Brooks came back, really cut into his rates. Then Morant was out. But without Brooks on the floor this year, 561 minutes for Morant, 1.39 DraftKings points per minute with a 34.2% usage rate. I think that there's a massive ceiling for him at this price point, and he's probably not going to get tons of ownership. I agree with you on Baines. He's at 0.98 DraftKings points per minute without Brooks as well, so he looks pretty good. Jaren Jackson looks fine. Anderson, Adams, those guys look fine. Concha, assuming he starts, looks pretty good at 3,100. But I think that out of the non-John Concha, just punt value guys, Morant's the one that I'm really, really interested in, where I think that He could just be massively better than people are giving him credit for.
Do you still have that Morant number up for what's his true shooting in that time?
55.8.
Okay. Assist rate?
37.
Okay. Well, that's basically, you just read off all of the numbers that I have in front of me for the projections that I have today. So, yeah, I like feeling pretty good about Ja Morant there. There's massive ceiling. Terrible matchup, but
he's played without Brooks.
Massive ceiling.
Yeah, it's kind of just like if you just like say, okay, Ja Morant is what he is, and he's going to play 32 or 33 minutes. He looks okay at 8,800, but I just think that there's a whole other level that he might not really be getting credit for because people weren't really giving him credit for it before Brooks came back and before the injury. And now I think they've just kind of completely forgotten. 14 total games played without Dillon Brooks, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute, 32.9% usage rate, 36.7% assist percentage in 34 minutes per game.
That'll work. Yeah, I might need to give him an extra minute or two. I have him in for 32 right now. That might be light.
I think that's pretty reasonable given his recent rotations.
Yeah. All right, on the Phoenix side, since I think we're done with Memphis, Phoenix has no Jay Crowder and no Elfrid Payton. Kaminsky already out. Abdel Nader and Ish Wainwright are out. And for some reason, Phoenix is like a team that doesn't have like a bunch of COVID guys. I don't know if they've signed anybody yet as a COVID replacement.
I don't think they have.
So they have to sign someone because they have Crowder and Payton out right now. So by default, they have to sign someone, and we should hear about that today. They don't have a choice.
I mean, like it's possible they have, and I missed it. But
yeah, I don't remember seeing anything. It doesn't appear to be on the list that I'm looking at. I just know that the new rules state that if you have two guys on your COVID list, you have to sign someone immediately, and then subsequently sign an additional for every additional guy that you have put onto your COVID list. But no Crowder in this case, and no Elfrid Payton. I don't know how much that. Of course. Atlanta is just Atlanta's
on. Just go away soon.
It might have to. So Skylar Mays just became one of the best plays on the slate.
Lance Stevenson just started to look good too.
Yeah.
So after actually saying that, I hope that game stays. I just want to watch.
He's air guitaring like a motherfucker in his hotel room right now. I'm back. Phoenix.
He probably went like sprinting to Nate McMillan with DeLon Wright's positive test.
Yeah. You might not want to take in like a hazmat suit so he doesn't get it.
Right.
Devin Booker's 21% owned on FanDuel, 12% owned on DraftKings. Booker, by the way, 7,400 on FanDuel. There's no other ownership here coming in for Phoenix. That all makes sense to me. I think Cam Johnson gets the biggest bump in minutes, but his price tag doesn't make him like super appealing. Do you plan on getting to much from Phoenix? I've got some interest in Paul and like Ayton if they're going to be single digit ownership on a day like today.
Yeah, like I never mind getting to Booker, Paul, Ayton as low owned, just hope they score 60 points and you're kind of on an island by yourself type tournament plays. But I don't really see anything here that I'm building around. This is just still an essentially healthy team. And there's plenty of shorthanded teams and it's growing by the minute.
That it is. Yeah. I mean, I see these Phoenix guys sort of like Utah wouldn't even be the best example, but just
normal Utah.
We're going to, well, not even that way, but we're not going to have a shortage of money. And, trying to grab 50 plus point days out of Chris Paul and Ayton and Booker is just going to be easier today. And I think that I'm just sort of rotating through the secondary stars of basically every single team.
Yeah, I think Booker is similar to to what we said about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum before Tatum was ruled out, where it's just like they don't look great, don't look bad. But I also realize that I'm going to have it goes back to the conversation we've had to have a lot recently whenever player salaries come up, like in YouTube chat. You don't win. You don't have to have like 8 players in your lineup all hit 7x value to win. When you know you're going to have guys that are 10xing, at some point you just need to get the raw points in to round out your lineup. That's where guys like Booker come in because, there's no real reason to think that he's going for 6 or 7x and that he's going to be one of the best values on the slate. But if he goes and just drops like 50 fantasy points, he's likely to be a useful piece because you're going to have a ton of 4K guys that scored 35 points in your lineup.
Yeah, I had that the Christmas Day lineup of Braun, Harden, Giannis all going north of 60. And it was just like, okay, I need to hope that I'm getting these random value plays right, because raw points ruled the roost for that lineup and was almost enough. We're going to have those value plays today on a 7-gamer, that's for sure. Well, or what could be a 6-gamer, depending on how this Atlanta game shakes out. I would not be surprised if we see DeLon Wright out now and Trae Young in 4 hours.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Which would be like fire up all the Trae Young.
And fire up all the conspiracy theories.
That too. We don't have anything else here for Phoenix now, right?
No.
All right. Cool. Well, at least nothing crazy is happening in this one. Dallas at Portland. On the Dallas side, we still have no Luka Doncic, no Reggie Bullock, no Willie Cauley-Stein, Tim Hardaway Jr., Maxi Kleber, Trey Burke, or Ja'Cory McLaughlin. Dorian Finney-Smith is in. And Josh Green is in. For Dallas, it's a 2-horse race. We've got Jalen Brunson projected for 20 to 25% ownership. Kristaps Porzingis projected for 20 to 25% ownership. Those two guys are the two priorities to me. Those two guys are the very clear good plays. I agree with their ownership. I don't really care about anything else from Dallas.
Pretty much how I see it as well. I don't really feel the need to take a bunch of shots at Frank Ntilikina and Sterling Brown and Dwight Powell on this slate. So it's pretty much Brunson at 7,700, Porzingis at 8,600. For the season, Brunson's at 1.07 DraftKings points per minute without Luka. Porzingis is at 1.32. They are in a good matchup against Portland. They both just look like good plays, and it's going to be easy to get to them.
Don't really feel the need to get to like I'm going to use value in quotes at this point, because that's sort of how it is. Ntilikina, Sterling Brown. I mean, Dorian Finney-Smith to a degree, although he's already 6K, but like the Ntilikina, Sterling Brown value is just going to get trumped by so many other options on different teams that are better point per dollar or better per minute guys than Ntilikina and Brown. Like those guys are pulling. Ntilikina and Brown are pulling like 4% ownership, even though they're playing big minutes for this team, and that to me that's right. Like they're not even all that interesting.
Yeah, like they're good point per dollar values, and on a lot of slates, like pre-COVID, they would be really popular. But today, it's more so just like, okay, well, there's 6 guys that look better than them because they're going to play just as many minutes and they're going to shoot the ball 100 times. So the low ownership makes sense.
Then we head to Portland, where it's even more ridiculous than it seems. So no CJ McCollum, COVID, no Nurkic, no Covington, no Ben McLemore, no Dennis Smith Jr., no Cody Zeller, no Trendon Watford or Kelvin Blevins. They've signed Jerron Cumberland and Brandon Williams. This is just like made up players. Nas Little is off the injury report, but the biggest question mark we have here, Damian Lillard is questionable for personal reasons. I haven't seen anything else as to what those personal reasons are or what if he's playing. This game starting at 10 o'clock sucks. It's not like you could just immediately swap to Luka on the opposite side because he isn't available. You can't swap to Paul George because he isn't available. So if you don't already have James Harden in your lineup, that Damian Lillard swap might not be the best one in the world for you. They are ultra shorthanded. For now, I have Dame in. I like him a lot at 9K on FanDuel. I don't mind him at all at 10-1 on DraftKings. Norm Powell looks exceptional, probably one way or the other. Maybe not exceptional, but good one way or the other. Larry Nance is fixing to play infinite minutes today if he can. For some strange reason, he's small forward, power forward eligible on FanDuel instead of having the center eligibility that he will no doubt start at for today. Nas Little looking great, 4,200 on DraftKings. Anthony Simons has the potential to be one of the best plays of the day if Dame gets ruled out to just an okay play if he's in. This Portland team is a lot today, man.
Yeah, it is. And as far as late swapping goes, like you're right. There's not a super easy Damian Lillard replacement. But the thing that's nice and the reason I'm not too concerned about it is I think I'm going to get to pieces from Brooklyn and the Clippers and Portland and Dallas anyway. So I think most lineups will probably have more than one guy. Like most of my Lillard lineups will probably have some extra piece somewhere anyway. But even if I'm in the position where like I have Dame and nothing else, if I have to swap him to Jalen Brunson and just eat the salary, like it's not ideal, but it's not like you're stuck.
This is another spot where, and we've talked about this a lot recently, or I have at least, as we're ramping up from that 6 to 7 window. If I will set a rule for Dame to force at least one guy from the 10 o'clock and 10:30 games. And I assume it'll build itself like that regardless. I don't think that that's like a rule that's going to be all that like crazy for me. I'm going to get something there, but just in case.
Yeah, and I probably won't, but it's because I expect that most of my lineups will have that anyway.
Same.
And if they don't, and like the worst case is Dame just becomes Porzingis or Brunson, then whatever.
Yeah. The firm, I would be less likely to do it on DraftKings. The firmer positional nature on FanDuel makes it a little bit more difficult because you don't have just like generic forwards or utility spots.
Yeah,
like if you have Dame in utility, you could do whatever you want. I can't do that
like normally. Right, on DraftKings, normally, because of when this game starts, any lineup where I don't have another piece from this game, Lillard's in utility. So he just becomes Kristaps Porzingis.
Yeah. Darnell Mayberry tweeting that the Hawks game could be on the verge of postponement.
Yeah. So normally when that's come out recently, it's been like 20 minutes and then it's done.
Yeah. Lillard, Powell, Nance, Little. Is there anything there that you want to add to other than those guys just look pretty good, whether Dame's in or not?
Yeah, they all look pretty good. Powell looks even better if Dame is out. Without McCollum or Nurkic on the floor this year, Dame's at 1.24 DraftKings points per minute. Nance is at 0.82. Simon's at 0.85. Little at 1.02. Powell's at 0.97. So, yeah, they just all look good.
Who's the best play on Portland if Dame is out? Simons,
4,300.
Okay. All right.
But, I mean, Nance, Powell, Little, Simons all would look fantastic.
Yeah, we're on the same page there.
Just start to be able to get to CJ Ellaby punt territory as well, I guess.
You mean you're not going to get to Jerron Anderson? I don't even know if those are the right words for either his first name or his last name.
Could have been a YouTube chat person for all I know.
Yeah. Let's close this one out. We only have a couple of minutes to go here. Brooklyn at the Clippers. Luckily for us for Brooklyn, this is basically just the same team we got for Christmas, which is nice. So no Harris, Durant, Aldridge, Irving, Thomas, Edwards, Duke, Sharp. Langston Galloway is on his second 10-day. If anybody tries to tell you any different for today, James Harden is the very clear top pay-up option. He's got a highest point ceiling by a mile on this slate, 11K on FanDuel, 11.2 on DraftKings, and all the money in the world to get to him. Is there anything negative for you to say about James Harden?
Nope. There's no Luka, there's no Giannis, there's no Jokic, there's no real reason not to be just playing a ton of James Harden.
No Durant, no LeBron, no Russ. Like we're missing a lot of the pay up options on this. It's like no Jason Tatum now.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, without Durant this season, Harden is at 1.52 DraftKings points per minute, but you also have to keep in mind that the early season version of James Harden isn't quite the same version of James Harden that we've been seeing recently in terms of just ability to play basketball. Since last season, without Durant or Irving on the floor, Harden is at, I think it's like 1.65 or 1.7.
Yeah,
1.67. If you take Dinwiddie off as well, it probably goes up even more.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Oh, sorry.
You getting?
That was since 2019, but
okay.
Same.
What else are you doing with Brooklyn here? Is Bruce Brown the next main option given the minutes we saw him play on Christmas?
Yeah, I think
they're so matchup dependent. That's the problem.
Good. What'd you say?
I said they're so matchup dependent where like Bruce Brown could just play 14 minutes in a game because they go to James Johnson or something else. We also saw Nick Claxton play 32 minutes on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising. And Brown's nice though, because like he can defend multiple positions. He's not someone that I'm too concerned about him disappearing as long as he starts. If he comes off the bench, then it's more of a concern. Like I would be pretty scared to roster him, but assuming he starts, he's only 4,700. He has guard forward eligibility on DraftKings. He's going to look pretty good.
I don't really have any other priorities from Brooklyn here. This is not a team that generally looks all that great from a fantasy perspective. Not Paul Millsap day today. That much I can confidently say.
Yeah, I mean, Claxton looks okay, but there's just so many good centers that it's tough to get there. So Harden, I think the clear number one, Brown number two.
All righty, let's close it out with the Clippers. Just give me your thoughts here. No Reggie Jackson, Paul George potentially out for the season. No Kawhi, clearly. No Hartenstein, Jason Preston, J Scrub. Q tag on Marcus Morris. They played yesterday. Bledsoe, 35% owned on FanDuel at 5,500, 19 on DraftKings. Nobody else in double digits other than Zubats on FanDuel at 12%. Lots of Bledsoe, and what else are you doing?
Yeah, give me a lot of Bledsoe at 6K. He looks good on DraftKings. The only downside is that he's point guard only. So you're already kind of taking a point guard spot with Harden. You have Brunson, you have Lillard, you have a lot of value there. So that's the only sort of knock on Bledsoe, but he looks very good. Man looks fine. Kennard looks fine. But I think that Bledsoe's the only real priority.
All righty. Anything else that you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I mean, Boston guys obviously look better than they did when we talked about them. We'll talk about that more on the deeper dive and live before lock later. And then obviously keep an eye on Atlanta because we might be losing a game.
Yep. There it is, everybody. Injury show later today for you and GPP videos.
Yeah. Football show now, GPP video after that, injury video after that, deeper dive after that.
There it is, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much to Yahoo Fantasy Sports for being the presenting sponsor of this show. Make sure you're following at Awesemo NBA on Twitter so you can get all the updates and all of the news that comes out. It's a tumultuous time in the NBA. You don't want to miss any of it. Deeper dive, live before lock, all that good stuff later tonight. That's going to be where you need to be as we work our way up till 7 o'clock. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.